Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. Today, I want to talk to you about why delegation will actually tank your business. Now, I know what you're thinking, but all the business coaches and all the successful people, they tell me that delegation is one of the major keys for success. And it is, but what they don't tell you is there's some things that need to happen before you delegate. And if you don't do these things, one of two things will happen. You'll either run your business into the ground. I don't think you want that. Or you'll be stressed out all the time. You'll micromanage your staff and you'll never be able to enjoy your time off. So I don't think you want that either. So last year, I was in Texas visiting some family, and I had this Uber driver pick me up. She was lovely. And we got to talking about what I do for a living, performance coach for entrepreneurs. And she's like, "Oh, the father of my children could really probably use your help." She told me that he was a serial entrepreneur and he'd get some success and then he'd hire people to do the work. And then before he knew it, he'd have another failed business. She said he was always trying to make his businesses work so that he wouldn't have to work anymore. You see, he wanted what I think a lot of entrepreneurs want is freedom, that time freedom, that ability to do whatever you want when you want. Well, you've probably heard me say that in order to succeed, you have to remove the resistance to the things that you don't like to do. And of course, this is the complete opposite of what the success gurus, what the business coaches tell you. They tell you to delegate out all those things that you don't like to do. They tell you to focus on your zone of genius and that this will help you succeed. But it won't help you succeed unless you remove the resistance to what it is that you don't like doing. So, yes, it's great to work in your zone of genius. It's great to have that energy and that flow of all the things you're good at and do those things for most of your time in your business. It's great when you get to that point. But unless you remove the resistance to the things that you don't like to do, you're going to have problems in your business. You're going to face that resistance one way or another. And there's no way you can delegate out the things that are probably making you resistant to doing those things in the first place. Let me show you. So, the guy I was just talking about, he had a resistance to doing the day to day stuff to keep the business running. And because he hated doing that day to day stuff and he didn't want to do it, he hired people to do it as soon as he possibly could. And there are a few things that happen when you do this. When you feel resistance, you are not, and I repeat, not making growth minded decisions. You will subconsciously make decisions that keep you right where you are, that will keep you at that same level that you are. So, this guy, he was making decisions that would keep him just at that place where he could, in theory, hire some people, but he wasn't able to grow the business beyond that point because he was not dealing with his resistance. And I'll say this again, when you feel resistance, you're not making growth minded decisions. Let me give you an example. Now, nobody can push our buttons like our parents. So, imagine this point where your mom's giving you some advice and it triggers you and it makes you feel annoyed and small, like you're doing something wrong. You know how our parents can tell us what we should do and how it makes us feel like, oh, no, I should not be doing that. I'm not listening to you. No, no, no. So Think of a situation like that where your parents or your mom gave you some advice and you were just totally resistant to it. Even if it was the best advice in the world, you didn't want to hear it because hearing it from her just made it feel like you were doing something wrong. And so when that happens, you're going to keep doing the same thing that you're doing instead of taking that good advice just because it came from your mom or whoever you don't like hearing advice from. Just because it came from them, you're going to be resistant to it. You're going to push it away. And now, if you are at some event, say you're at some conference or something, and you're feeling totally neutral, feeling excited about what you're going to learn, and somebody on the stage gives you some advice, maybe it's the same advice that your mom just gave you last week. And you might say, "Oh, that's a good idea." And you will hear it and receive it and be open to the growth and the change because you're not feeling resistance. Whereas when you heard it from the other person, your mom or whoever, you were resistant to it. You were not feeling neutral. And because at this event, you're actually feeling neutral instead of that resistance, you can make decisions that will help you to grow instead of staying stuck in those same cycles, repeating the same crap over and over and over again. And I know you can look back at your life, especially if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s. You can look back at your life and see these patterns where you repeated this same cycle over and over again. And people are doing this in their business all the time. They're doing it in their life. So when you feel resistance, you will not see the information that can help you grow. Information that would be clear as day if you felt neutral. When you feel resistance, it's like you have blinders on. You don't even realize it, but you have these blinders on and you are not aware of information that is very clear to somebody else or would be very clear to you if you felt neutral. So, another thing that happens if you feel resistance to doing a task is you will hire people to do that before your company can afford to hire it. Like this man that I was talking about, he, as soon as he could potentially hire anybody, he would hire people. But it was really before his company could actually hold that payroll expense. So he could have still kept doing the work and built his company more before he hired, but he just tried to hire out so quickly because he didn't want to do the day to day stuff. Then what happens in those circumstances is you often will hire the wrong people. You'll believe people who oversell themselves. People who are very charming and charismatic in an interview, and then you hire them and they can't do the work. They can't follow through. It's like they oversold themselves and you fell for it. When you're in resistance to doing certain tasks, you are way more likely to fall for that overselling for the person who's misrepresenting themselves. And you will also resonate and vibe with people who have similar resistance patterns. Like attracts like. We tend to really connect with people who have the same problems as us and who respond to things in the same way that we do. And to really balance out your company, you've got to have some differences here. You've got to hire people that are not all big picture thinkers. If you're a big picture thinker, you need to hire some detail oriented people, but you're going to connect and resonate with the big picture thinkers. You guys are going to see eye to eye, but you don't want to do this detailed, fine tuned stuff. You're not going to connect as strongly with those people. So you've got to still hire them and bring them in, even though you don't have that deep soul connection, because we tend to have those connections with people who think the same way. But to really round out your business and fill in all the gaps, you've got to hire people who think differently than you. So you'll resonate and vibe with those people that have the similar resistant patterns, which means they're not going to do it the way that you want to get it done. They're going to do it probably the way that you're doing it, which is not that well. And you won't be able to train them well because your resistance will give them incomplete training. You won't be able to really articulate and communicate how it really needs to be done because you have this resistance to doing it. And you'll be resistance to working deeply with them side by side to figure out what's really going to work, what really needs to be done to troubleshoot all the problems because you just don't want to do those tasks. So, one more thing that will often happen is you'll offload it and you'll probably end up being kind of a crappy boss. You will be a little bit more micromanagey because you won't trust them to do it well. And the truth is you don't trust yourself to do it well. So it's even at that point, it's really hard to let go and let somebody do it. When I first started this business, I was doing all the things to make it work. I was posting daily on social media. I was doing workshops and talks. I had a lead magnet and a funnel, and I was barely scraping by. My clients were super happy, but I was not making the business work. And there's a difference between coaching my clients and building a business. Those are two separate things. So I was scraping by and I was getting overwhelmed trying to keep up with all of the things, the daily posting, the captioning the videos, the editing this, the doing the talks, the reaching out to do talks, posting on event boards, blah, 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 so many things. And I was overwhelmed, as a lot of business owners are, especially when they first start out, especially when they're doing it all by themselves. So I got someone to help me with the captioning and the posting in my videos. I got someone to help me with the copywriting. I hated writing copy. Like it really is just like, everything in me is like, Uh, but my copywriter, she tried to help me. She was great. She asked me about who my target audience was, and I resisted getting clear with her. I She targeted in and really tried to help me, but I was so difficult to work with. I couldn't see it at the time. I was just like, why can't she get this right? See, I didn't want to narrow it down. I felt like I would leave people out. I felt like if I didn't speak to everybody, then nobody would resonate with me. I felt like I had to talk about all the things and every little thing that I did. I had to do more, do more, do more. This is a big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs feel like they need to do more, do more, do more. And so I wanted her to figure all that stuff out for me. I wanted her to solve my problem. I wanted her to write copy that would just make people look at it and they would opt into my lead magnet. They would become my clients. I wanted her to do the work. I was offloading the responsibility. I was offloading taking care of my business. I was trying to get someone else to do it for me. And I wasn't doing this consciously. This was all subconscious, below the surface patterning. I was wanting them to make it work for me. You can see this pattern in people who have these moments like, well, when I just get my webinar done, then my business is going to take off. When I land that really great client, then I'm going to be okay. That's an offloading of responsibility. And that was one of the things I was doing. And my problem, it wasn't a copywriting problem. As I said, I part of it was didn't really want to take responsibility for my business. I didn't want to do what it took day in and day out to make my business work. I didn't want to have to learn more, take more trainings, figure more things out. I didn't want to do any of that. So I made it my copywriter's problem. I wanted them to solve it for me. My problem, like I said, it was not a copywriting problem. Part of it also was I had a resistance to choosing a target market. And here's the thing, the reason I had a resistance to choosing a target market was because I had a resistance to making definitive decisions and sticking to them. I got sidetracked by, oh, this other thing that might work better faster. Again, trying to offload that responsibility. But I wasn't able to make definitive decisions. I wasn't able to stick to my decisions. I kept flip-flopping around, feeling unsure, all of those things inside of me. So even if she solved my target market problem and wrote me the best copy and it worked and it made me a ton of money, even if she did all that, I would never be able to delegate out my resistance to making and sticking with decisions, being definitive and decisive. I'd never be able to delegate that out. And the more I would delegate out things that made me butt up against that problem, the more I had no control in my business, the more I was offloading the responsibility. My resistance in copywriting was the symptom of a bigger problem. It was a success zone problem. You've heard me talk a lot about a success zone and those decision making problems. That is a symptom of your success zone being too small. So even if I solved the copywriting issue and she did it all for me, the bigger problem would still be there. That problem of offloading my responsibility and making definitive decisions. And those two go hand in hand, don't they? So that problem, those two problems, the offloading responsibility and the having problems with definitive decisions, those were going to seep into many other aspects of my business, even if the copywriting thing was solved. And that would have made my business fail. So if I were to lean into the copywriting and really push myself into that thing that I had so much resistance, surrender to doing it, I would have to start making decisions. I would have to start taking responsibility. And that's what I did. Ironically, I love copywriting now. But in doing that, and of course, I have lots of tools up my sleeve. I use advanced mental techniques to remove the resistance in the brain at the subconscious level so that instead of having to force yourself through it time and time again and struggle and suffer and I can just go into my brain, do a process, an advanced mental technique, and clean out that resistance at a much faster rate. So once I did that and I started leaning into the copywriting, I started making the decisions about who I wanted to serve, about the entrepreneurs that I want to serve. I started taking responsibility and doing the daily actions that it took for me to build a business, which was learn how to market, learn how to copyright. And those were things that I had resistance to. I wanted somebody else to do it because I didn't want to take responsibility for what I needed to know to run my business. I just wanted to learn what I wanted to learn. I just wanted to know how to help my clients and help them break through the things that were in their way. I didn't want to do those things that would help me build a business. So, and part of that is because I hated tedious, detailed, monotonous work. Like I said, a big picture thinker. I'm a big picture thinker. So those tiny details, I don't like doing them. I'm not great at them. So that captioning all my content and scheduling the content, that was a thing that I had resistance to. And it wasn't that I was resisting doing that. It was that I didn't want to do the tedious, detailed, monotonous work. So, as I said, I got someone to help me and I half-ass trained this person. I sent her some screenshots and asked her to do it, and she dropped the ball. And at the time, I was like, oh, well, shit. I really put myself out there and tried to get this person to help me. And she dropped the ball, and I was upset about it. But what I didn't realize is that it was my responsibility, my fault. So she dropped the ball by she started researching a more effective way to do the scheduling and started taking some trainings on how to do it better. And she did all of this instead of doing what I had asked. So what had happened was that I had asked someone to help me do something who also had the same resistance to doing the task. So she was trying to find a better way so she could subconsciously get out of doing the task. So she was trying to find a way around it. Just like by me asking her to do it, I was trying to find a way around it because we were both trying to resist these detail oriented tasks. Because surprise, surprise, we were both big picture thinkers. Like attracts like. I also did not sit down with her and properly train her on how I wanted the things done because I was subconsciously doing everything I could to get out of doing that task. And sitting down with her and walking her through it would be doing the task. And it was never about the captioning or the scheduling of posts. It was never about that. It was about the fact, like I said before, that I was not great at detailed, tedious work. And honestly, it made me feel stupid. Like I was not aware of this. The stuff is happening at a subconscious level and it's driving your decisions. 95% of all decisions are made because of an emotion. Your emotions drive your decisions. And we don't think about the fact that we feel emotions all the time. We think about when we're overwhelmed with emotions as when we feel emotions. But your procrastination is driven by an emotion and you're not even aware of it. So we all have these little emotions that are so subtle and our subconscious mind reacts so quickly that we don't even know that we felt the emotion because as the emotion starts to happen, our subconscious mind will pivot us to do something else. So if I thought about doing detailed, tedious work, that feeling that I would feel stupid or I would feel inadequate because I was not good at it would come up. And before it even really rose to the surface, I would find something else to do. I would pick up my phone and scroll social media, whatever it was to distract me from that feeling, from having to face that feeling. So I hated that I couldn't do those detailed, fine-tuned things as quickly as other people. I hated that that was hard work for me. It didn't come naturally, it didn't come easily. And so subconsciously, I do anything to avoid feeling stupid and inadequate. And again, it would happen out of my awareness. I wasn't even aware that I was avoiding this feeling. This is also why I gave up on learning the piano only after a couple lessons. As soon as things got more complicated with the fingers and I had to be detailed and hit the right notes at the right times and blah, 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 it was so hard. And I just gave up and I quit because it made me feel stupid and it made me feel inadequate. And now once I overcame the resistance to doing those things, once I overcame the feelings of feeling inadequate and not feeling smart when I did detailed work, I no longer had to fight against those feelings. And without those feelings there was no resistance to doing the task. Sure, I'm not great at super detailed things. Like creating funnels, all the moving pieces of a funnel and all the the email automations and all the detailed things. And then, oh, you've got to do it 15 times for 15 different tracking things. I'm not great at it. I need a checklist and I need to go over it over and over. I need to do it in small chunks of time so I don't get overwhelmed. So I figure out a way to work with my lack of skill, but I don't have resistance to it anymore. It's no problem for me to sit down and do some detailed work. Sure, I'm not going to do 8 hours straight of it, but I know it needs to get done. So I just do it. And it's not this battle, this internal battle that it used to be, that again was going on below the surface that I wasn't even aware of. And so now that I don't have that resistance, I can delegate that stuff out with success. I can hire the right people to do the task because I'm actually feeling neutral when I'm talking to them and asking about them. So I'm able to see those things that I would have missed because I was in that state of resistance. Just like you're going to miss that good advice that your mom's giving you because you feel triggered. Because I don't feel triggered, albeit like a small trigger or a low grade trigger that's out of my awareness, because I don't feel that, I'm able to make clear and better decisions because I feel neutral. I can see more of the world. I can actually make decisions from a growth minded place. So when you face and deal with your resistance of the things that you hate to do, you'll overcome a bigger problem. And that bigger problem is always going to create more crap in your business unless you deal with it. So when you have resistance, it is so beneficial to deal with the resistance and figure that out before you delegate the task out. Because overcoming that, you will overcome a bigger problem in your business that is going to tank your business at some point or cause you to constantly be stressed out. So when you feel neutral about a task, that task, whatever the thing is that you don't like, it may never be your strength. You may never love to do it. But when you feel neutral about it, you won't be making your delegation decisions out of avoidance. You'll be making them from a growth mindset. And that, my friends, will make all of the difference in your business. And so, those of you who want to have a few tips that will help you to break through some of that resistance. I have a guide out there. It's the 3 secrets that the business gurus never talk about. There's some tips in here that will help you to work through that resistance. And you can grab that at bethewolfgift.com. So open up your browsers. If you realize that you have some resistance to doing some things in your business and you want some more insight, some more tips that will help you to overcome that resistance so that you don't have the problems I've been talking about, open up your browsers right now and grab that guide and open up and type in bethewolfgift.com and you can grab it and be on your way to a little less resistance and a little more success. So thank you for listening today, everybody. And remember, when you unleash the power of you, humanity evolves. We'll see you next time on Be the Wolf. Bye, everyone.